May 8, 2025. White smoke billows above the Sistine Chapel. A name is called from the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. Habemus Papam! We have a pope! But this time, the name that follows is unlike any the Church, or the world, has ever heard. Leo XIV. Formerly known as Robert Francis Prevost, born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. For the first time in history, an American has been elected pope. The Catholic world erupts in awe. Rome celebrates. Chicago beams with pride. And thousands of miles away, at Mar-a-Lago in Florida, another American icon opens his phone and reacts. The 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. On his social media platform, Truth Social, Donald Trump quickly posts, "Congratulations to Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, who was just named Pope. It is such an honor to realize that he is the first American Pope. What excitement, and what a great honor for our country. I look forward to meeting Pope Leo XIV. It will be a very meaningful moment. We were very happy to learn the new Pope is an American. What greater honor could there be?" Narrator. The statement, brief but patriotic, echoed a sentiment shared by millions of Americans, Catholic or not. For a moment, the often divided nation united in pride. Pope Leo XIV wasn't just any American. He was born in Chicago in 1955. He entered the Augustinian order as a young man and spent over 2 decades as a missionary in Peru, working among the poor, ministering in dangerous areas, and even facing down threats from extremist groups. His blend of humble roots and international service made his papacy symbolic on many levels. To Trump, and many others, this was a historic American moment. It's rare for Donald Trump to speak so positively about a religious leader who hasn't directly praised him. That alone shows how big this moment is. In American politics, Trump's approval carries serious weight with his base. So his endorsement of the new pope, however brief, carried cultural and geopolitical meaning. It wasn't just about religion. It was about representation, patriotism, and the soft intersection of faith and power. This isn't just any pope. This is a pope who grew up in our system, understands American values, and has roots in working-class communities. That matters. Pope Leo XIV inherits a Catholic Church in flux. From declining attendance in the West, to booming growth in Africa and Asia. From doctrinal debates over modern issues, to scandals still shaking trust. The Church stands at a tipping point. Leo XIV brings something different. A missionary's grit. A pastor's tenderness. A Chicagoan's realism. And a diplomat's clarity. Even Trump, a figure not known for deep religious discourse, could appreciate the moment. America had given the world a pope. And for a former president who always emphasized American greatness, this was fuel for the fire. The relationship between the White House and the Vatican has always been layered. Under Trump's presidency, his relationship with Pope Francis was complicated. The two exchanged sharp words, particularly around immigration and border walls. So when Trump congratulated Pope Leo XIV with warmth, many were surprised. Was it a political calculation? A personal sentiment? Or a genuine admiration? This could be a reset. Trump sees a pope from Chicago, maybe with some Midwestern grit, and thinks, okay, maybe this one's different. Suddenly, headlines from CNN to Vatican News to Fox lit up with the same question. What will Pope Leo XIV mean for America? And for Donald Trump? Would their paths cross? Would their values align? Would the most famous political name in the world and the newest spiritual leader find common ground? 2 worlds. 2 voices. And now, 2 figures on a historic collision course. The former president who still commands global attention. And the newly crowned pope who just made history. What happens next? Stay with us. At first glance, it was a perfect symbolic moment. America's most famous political figure praising the first ever American pope. But as the cameras turned away and the dust settled, something became clear. Their handshake masked a deep ideological divide. A divide not just between 2 men, but between two worldviews. Before he was Pope Leo XIV, he was Father Bob, a missionary priest serving in the harshest regions of Peru. He didn't build power. He built trust. He didn't preach from ivory towers. He taught in dirt floor schools. Our duty is not to grow the church in numbers, but to deepen the church in mercy. Even as he climbed the ranks, bishop, cardinal, prefect of bishops, his focus never changed. He stood with the poor, the refugee, the forgotten. Meanwhile, Donald Trump rose to political power on very different promises. Secure the borders. Deport undocumented immigrants. Build a wall between the U.S. and Mexico. And throughout his term, he maintained a vision of national sovereignty above global compassion. We're putting America first. No more globalists. No more open borders. It was a message that resonated with millions. But for Pope Leo XIV, who once lived among undocumented families in South America, it struck a nerve. Before becoming Pope, Robert Prevost shared several posts on Twitter and Facebook. Some were subtle. Others were sharp. One tweet read, "We are Christians. Not because we build walls, but because we open doors." Another post criticized the U.S. politicians' biblical justification of border enforcement, stating, "Scripture should not be weaponized to justify injustice." Many interpreted that post as a swipe at J.D. Vance, Trump ally and conservative Catholic senator. Even before becoming Pope, Leo XIV wasn't afraid to challenge politicians misusing faith. And not everyone in Trump's circle was thrilled about the new Pope. Former White House strategist Steve Bannon spoke out publicly. "It is shocking to me that a guy could be selected to be the Pope that had the Twitter feed and the statements he's had against American senior politicians. That this guy gets elected should shock traditionalists everywhere." Bannon's comments reflected a growing concern among Trump's religious supporters. Would Pope Leo XIV become a liberal counterbalance to Trump's populist momentum? Would he use his moral authority to criticize nationalism? Would Catholic voters be swayed? Just days into his papacy, Pope Leo gave a speech to the diplomatic corps. He spoke about war, climate change, and economic injustice. But one line stood out. "The dignity of migrants must be respected. We cannot be a church of walls. We must be a church of welcome." The phrase, "church of walls," wasn't lost on anyone. It was widely seen as a rebuke of the Trump-era border wall policies. Some called it prophetic. Others called it political. Either way, it was powerful. When the Pope speaks on immigration, it's not just theology. It's global policy. Beyond policy, there were deeper theological contrasts. Trump often tied Christianity to law and order, strength, and retribution. Pope Leo XIV emphasized mercy, forgiveness, and sacrifice. To one, faith was a shield. To the other, it was a cross. Christianity is not about dominance. It is about washing feet. These weren't just stylistic differences. They revealed conflicting visions of what it means to follow Christ. And to many watching, the cracks began to show. In 2020, nearly half of American Catholics voted for Trump. Many were drawn to his pro-life policies, economic promises, and conservative judicial appointments. But Pope Leo XIV's rise brought a new energy, especially among younger Catholics. They resonated with his calls for environmental justice, his compassion for migrants, his emphasis on humility over culture wars. "I've never related to a pope before. But this one? He speaks our language. He gets it." They may never say it directly. But their paths, though momentarily respectful, are on a collision course. Two figures. Two movements. Two interpretations of Christianity. And the question isn't who's right. It's what kind of future their visions will lead us toward. In the corridors of power, both political and spiritual, every gesture matters. A handshake. A public post. A quiet omission. With Pope Leo XIV and Donald Trump, the world watched as two monumental figures, both symbols in their own right, reacted to each other. At first, there was respect. Then silence. and soon divergence. Now, the question remains: what happens when two global titans walk separate roads with the world watching? Pope Leo XIV has made his position clear. The Church is not a tool of nationalism, wealth, or popularity. It is, and always will be, a sanctuary for the forgotten. His words echo through communities that have long felt unheard: immigrants, the poor, the abused. And unlike many before him, Leo XIV isn't afraid to wade into the political realm, not to campaign, but to confront. His silence on partisan politics is strategic. But his message? It's crystal clear. To some, he's a radical. To others, he's a reformer. But to all, he's consistent. Meanwhile, Donald Trump continues to shape global politics even post-presidency. His movement, Make America Great Again, has evolved into a lasting political force. He remains admired by millions of conservative Christians, especially evangelical leaders, and a significant portion of Catholic voters. It's a rallying cry, one that resonates with people feeling left behind in a globalized world. But when compared to the universal, borderless message of Pope Leo XIV, the contrast is blinding. More than just political or cultural. This is becoming a spiritual identity crisis. For many believers, both men represent opposing answers to the same question. What does it mean to be Christian in today's world? Is it bold nationalism, tradition, and moral absolutism? Or is it servant leadership, compassion for the stranger, and global solidarity? Trump speaks to power. Pope Leo speaks to purpose. In Latin America, Africa, and Asia, Pope Leo is gaining momentum. In parts of America, Trump's spiritual influence still dominates. The divide is not just among leaders. It's among us. Since the Pope's election, Trump hasn't made further official comments. He's praised the historic nature of Leo's appointment, but remained silent on the Pope's social teachings. Likewise, Pope Leo XIV has avoided mentioning Trump by name. But his public homilies often challenge the ideologies Trump's movement champions, like isolationism, militarized borders, and economic greed. A society is not judged by the size of its banks, but by the depth of its mercy. It's not political mudslinging. It's spiritual messaging, with global implications. Fox News portrays Pope Leo as a spiritual figure who might be out of touch with everyday Americans. MSNBC calls him a moral voice, and gentle rival to Trump's influence. Catholic media is split. Some praise Leo for his humility. Others criticize his silence on traditional culture war issues. We're watching a global tug-of-war play out, between the cross and the flag. As elections loom in the U.S., and the Vatican begins a new chapter, the world is watching. Will Pope Leo XIV influence the Catholic vote? Will Trump's movement confront or ignore the Vatican's new direction? Can two voices this loud coexist? This is more than a political drama. It's a cultural reckoning. And as their worlds continue to turn, the questions echo. What kind of power are we following? What kind of faith are we defending? And most importantly, who will define what it means to lead in our time, Trump or Leo XIV? One man commands crowds with volume. The other commands hearts with silence. One speaks of borders. The other speaks of bridges. One was chosen by voters. The other, by cardinals. And both, in their own way, have left their mark. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God's. Matthew 22 verse 21.